Alright guys, you know how much I love pushing the limits of aviation and building crazy airplanes, but you know what? Knowing your airspace could save your license or your life. The US airspace system has Class A to G. Each class has its own set of rules, and trust me, the FAA is watching. We're gonna dive deep into each one, from the Wild West of Class G all the way up to the airline highways in the sky, Class A. Let's get into it. We're starting at the tippy top with Class A airspace. This is the domain of the big boys, the airliners, the jets making their way across continents. We're talking 18,000 feet, mean sea level all the way up to a dizzying 60,000 feet. IFR, Instrument Flight Rules, is the name of the game in Class A. You're not cleared into this airspace without a flight plan, a clearance from ATC, and all the fancy equipment in your panel to make it happen. Think of Class A as the Autobahn of the sky. Everyone's moving fast, everyone's going in the same direction, and there's no room for error. The FAA controls every inch of this airspace for a reason: safety and efficiency. So, while you're down here navigating Class E or G, just remember there's a whole other world up above operating under completely different rules. Alright, now let's talk about Class B airspace. If Class A is the Autobahn, Class B is like navigating rush hour traffic in a major city. Think LAX, JFK, O'Hare. You don't just wander into this airspace. It's heavily controlled for a reason, and you need permission from air traffic control before you even think about crossing that boundary. Class B airspace is designed around the busiest airports in the country, often depicted as that familiar upside-down wedding cake on your sectional chart. Cutting it too close without permission could get you in serious trouble with the FAA. And hey, maybe one day you'll be flying your own custom-built plane into LAX just to say you did it. Now we're moving down the line to Class C airspace. Think of this as the stepping stone between the hustle and bustle of Class B and the more laid-back vibe of Class D. Class C airspace surrounds moderately busy airports, places like your regional hubs, where you'll find a mix of commercial traffic and general aviation. In Class C, you need to establish two-way radio communication with ATC before entering the airspace. Think of it like calling ahead to make a reservation at a popular restaurant. It's like having a second set of eyes looking out for you, especially when things start getting busy. So next time you're planning a flight and you see that Class C airspace on your chart, just remember, establish two-way communication with ATC before entering, and you'll be good to go. Alright, let's talk about Class D airspace, the kind of airspace you'll encounter most often as a student pilot. Think of it like your friendly neighborhood airport. Class D airspace is typically found around smaller airports with an operating control tower, usually from the surface to about 2,500 feet. The main thing here is communication. Before you enter Class D airspace, you need to establish two-way radio communication with the tower. Let them know who you are, and where you're going. So next time you're flying into a Class D airport, remember, communication is key. Alright, let's talk about Class E airspace, the most common type of airspace you'll encounter in the United States. Think of it as the catch-all category for everything that's not Class A, B, C, or D. It's controlled airspace, which means the FAA has some say in what goes on up there, but it's not as restrictive as the other classes. Typically, Class E airspace starts at 1,200 feet above ground level in most areas, but it can start at the surface or higher depending on the location. Now, here's the thing about Class E airspace. You don't need any special clearance to enter. However, there are still rules and regulations you need to follow, like minimum altitudes and visibility requirements. Same goes for Class E airspace. Just because you don't have to talk to anyone doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Alright, we're down to the last one, Class G airspace. Think of it as the Wild West of the skies. It's uncontrolled airspace, which means there's no ATC to tell you what to do. You're free to roam as you please, but with great freedom comes great responsibility. Class G airspace is typically found close to the ground, below 700 feet AGL in most areas, but it can extend higher in some places. Now, just because it's uncontrolled doesn't mean there are no rules. Use your best judgment, be aware of your surroundings, and always err on the side of caution. So there you have it, a crash course on the US airspace system. From the busy airways of Class A to the freedom of Class G, understanding the different types of airspace and their rules is crucial for any pilot. It's not just about passing your check ride, it's about staying safe and keeping the skies a safe place for everyone. there's a lot more to learn about airspace, so I encourage you to dive deeper, study your charts, and talk to your flight instructor. Want the cheat sheet? Drop a plane emoji in the comments and follow for more. And until next time, keep your wings level and your eyes on the skies. Gap 3S. Before we wrap up, let's dive into a visual guide that brings everything we've discussed to life. On your screen, you'll see detailed illustrations and a comprehensive chart that combines all air control spaces along with their altitude limits. Gap 2S. Starting with Class A airspace, which covers everything from 18,000 feet up to 60,000 feet. This is where you'll find most commercial jetliners cruising. Next, we move to Class B airspace, typically surrounding the nation's busiest airports, extending from the surface up to 10,000 feet. Gap 2S. Class C airspace usually surrounds airports with a moderate amount of traffic, from the surface up to 4,000 feet. Then we have Class D, which generally covers smaller airports extending from the surface to 2,500 feet. Gap 2S, Class E airspace is a bit more complex, starting from 1,200 feet above ground level and extending up to 18,000 feet, but it can start from the surface in some areas. Finally, Class G airspace, the least restrictive, covers everything below Class E, from the surface up to 1,200 feet in most areas. Gap 2S. As you can see, understanding these different layers and their altitude limits is key to navigating the skies safely. Feel free to pause the video to take a closer look at the chart and illustrations, and don't forget to download the cheat sheet from the link in the description. Gap 2S. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe, stay informed, and keep exploring the skies.